you buy a home computer.
Electronic games being heralded by folks in the trade as this year's holiday bestseller.
Children have skipped school or stolen money to play the games.
I'll be looking at the electronic game craze.
And at the end of the tape, I'll be back to tell you how to safeguard your computer.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Streamer News. Trying a different way to control stuff, so as usual, making sure things work as soon as you know the stream starts, everything breaks. But I think we're actually doing okay today. I think it's actually working. Wow. All right. Welcome to Streamer News. We got some topics to talk to you about, as we always do, because that's how Streamer News works. We've got stuff like some Twitch changes, some Windows 11 changes, we got some cool PC ports of games, we got new cameras, and a huge Resolve update as well. So, before we jump into it, as always, check out our merch over at eposvox.gg/merch. I'm gonna type it in myself like pleb. We have high quality desk mats, pins, and stickers available if you wish to deck out your laptop or your desk station or whatever. And your purchase will also get you a free trial to my own streaming site, Nebula, where my videos are ad-free, higher quality, and often extended from the YouTube version. We are slowly but surely running out of this first run here, but definitely go check it out. I have received nothing but pretty solid feedback of these so far, other than a request to make them bigger. So of course, check out the measurements for yourself to make sure it's the size that you would like. But they are pretty freaking nice. So yeah, wanted to mention those. Got a lot of stuff going on today. Next week, by the way, we have some really awesome videos coming. No Earthworks mic today. No, that's over back at my main desk setup now. But we're gonna have another Earthworks here soon. That's about all I can say. Next week, we have some really awesome videos coming. One that's kind of been in the works since I don't know, the spring. So I'm super stoked to finally get that in front of you, as well as some other stuff. In terms of catching up with housekeeping here, since our last stream, we did, of course, have my review of the Earthworks Icon Pro. Phenomenal microphone, and they are contributing quite a few Earthworks Icon USB mics to our giveaways. And I will be announcing the next one of that probably this weekend. I'm a little bit behind, but we're still getting everything going. I have also partnered with PreSonus to give away 2 more of their Revelator USB microphones as well. So lots of gear I'm trying to negotiate to get in your all's hands. Huge thumbs up there. Of course, had my Behind the Streams podcast episode with Katiosaurus. That was an awesome episode. Super stoked for that. We finally had my review from basically July come up of the Cooler Master Stream Engine. Which was quite the mess. And then the AverMedia Live Streamer Cap 4K review is finally live. So you can go check out those as well. I am slowly working my way through getting the website updated as well. That will take some time. What is your best lens for streaming that you would recommend for a Sony a5100? Well, if you want best is never the right question to ask. But if you want my top tier recommendation, that would be the Sigma 16mm f1.4. That is what I'm using right here and what I use on my other A6400, and it is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. All right, we got some topics to talk about today. I guess let's jump into them. First and foremost, if you are someone who has been shouting out about the issues with AMD on Windows 11 as the reason that AMD is complete trash and blah, 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 you can kindly now shut up about it, because the patch to fix the AMD CPU performance on Windows 11 has now been released, which it's an optional update. You can download it for yourself, and things should be running smoothly moving forward. And if you're over on Intel, there was never really a major a major problem anyway, as I've been using both the Insider and now the full release build on a couple gaming PCs without issues. And I'm currently working on swapping over all of my benchmarking rigs over to Windows 11 for the upcoming releases that will more or less require Windows 11 that I will be comparing to. So you can go check out that update for yourself if you're running AMD. It might be... it's worth noting here that I'm not telling you that you need to switch to Windows 11 by any stretch. None of my videos said that, and in fact, in the streamer one, I specifically said you may want to reconsider which rigs you upgrade. Because realistically, when a new operating system first comes out, you never want to upgrade a mission critical or like super important to your work machine, because there's going to be issues or things that break or whatever. You want to keep your workflow intact, and you want to keep things from breaking and yada yada. And so you don't really want to do that. But if you've been wanting to tinker with Windows 11, or you have PCs that you want to upgrade, or non-mission critical ones, what have you, then you do, like, there's more capability to do so now. So just keeping in mind, along with that, with Windows 11, they are now finally testing the Android app capability in the insider builds. It was really frustrating that they didn't actually launch with it at launch. But Tom Warren here is showcasing Apple Music, Signal, and the Microsoft launcher for Android, all running on Windows 11 with the new Android app capability, and you can sideload apps as well, which means, keep in mind, sideloading apps is going to be a big security risk. But the fact that he's able to just run pretty much whatever kind of shows that we're not going to be super locked down with regards to what Android apps you run. Like, there was some concern that it was going to be this weird kind of closed up sandbox with super limited capabilities, but it seems like you can just kind of run whatever you want, which means there should be a lot of good stuff. Now, I have yet to see any testing with GPU demanding apps, so that means apps like games and video editing, things like that. That is where my curiosity is piqued, because previously the only way to run those on PC is to do like Nox or BlueStacks or whatever. And honestly, having tried it a multitude of times, it is a miserable experience that just told me it wasn't worth it, and I'd rather use some cheap secondary Android phone. So hopefully that is the case, that the games and stuff can have decent access to your graphics card. He does show YouTube running here, I believe. And that is interesting, because I'm curious if it can access, hardware accelerated decoding for videos and things like that. Obviously, you have no reason to run the YouTube Android app on your desktop other than maybe posting stories. But in general, I am very curious to see how this goes, because that should be pretty exciting. Moving along. Oh yeah, that was the official announcement of the Android app as well, with the Amazon App Store preview. I love that you can sideload, because I really don't understand why they're running this all through Amazon. That's really bothering a lot of people. So I'm betting someone will release a just basic like app installer kind of program to help you with side loading, so that you can just have your own kind of all-in-one launcher instead of relying on Amazon. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I haven't upgraded my main rigs yet. However, my streaming rig that I'm on now 100% needs a Windows reinstall. So I might as well swap it over, given that there should be no major issues to be had. I have now been running my gaming PC and that laptop I reviewed on Windows 11 without any major issues. And like I said, I am switching my benchmarking rigs over to Windows 11 as well. So far, so good. I haven't swapped my main editing rig yet, but it will also need a reinstall, because just like what happened when I was constantly complaining about Windows updates back in like 2018, I think it was or 2019 as well, the 1709 update. That was one of the first ones that like couldn't install, and for like 6 to 8 months it would just keep restarting my computer at random and still not being able to force this install, and it would do it like 6 times a day. Obviously they've cranked all that way back, but my main editing rig still has an update that it fails to install every time it tries to update, which, if I'm not paying attention, could be every time I reboot. And it has to do with some sort of driver incompatibility that it just can't figure out. And so it's reaching the point where it's getting annoying enough, and for other reasons, because Windows just breaks down over time, it needs kind of a reinstall. So it may get upgraded to 11 as well. We'll see. My gaming PC is actually maining Garuda Linux at the moment, although I'm running into tons of issues with like Wayland and stuff that are frustrating me. But whenever I do need to run Windows games for, multiplayer games, because lol, Windows 11 is what it's running. So I just wanted to quickly note, because I found it really interesting, Valve just kind of quietly dropped a Half-Life 2 update in the year 2021, which was completely unexpected. It fixes some ancient bug fixes, introducing a higher FOV cap up to 110, which is wild, and supports ultra-wide resolutions. And they added Vulkan support. So this kind of reveals why they're doing it, is they added Vulkan support, which is most likely to make it run better on the Steam Deck coming up. Of course, Valve wants their own games running on the Steam Deck as best as possible, and so that appears to be the big change, and getting Vulkan support for it is really nice. So I am kind of stoked for this big shift. I'm gonna have... Oh, wrong button. I'm gonna have a dedicated video on this, but I am reaching the point where I am finally excited again for gaming on Linux. I was excited when when Proton first released back in 2018. Had Wendell on the channel, did a whole vlog series where I swapped my gaming computer over to Linux. Was super stoked. But then quickly I kept running into either issues or just games that I wanted to play that didn't work over and over and over. Then I tried again back in June of this year when I discovered Garuda Linux, and I was like, this has Compiz. I haven't used Compiz since I was in high school melting laptops with it. It has a new spiritual successor. I want to use it. And it just didn't work on NVIDIA cards at all. And then once again, every game I wanted to play did not work. Well, I'm currently going through a kind of like spiritual mindset shift in that I'm moving away from multiplayer games for a little bit so I can actually get into gaming and feel like I'm playing through my backlog again. And when you're not playing multiplayer games, there is a wide gamut of games that just run basically completely perfectly, if not even better than on Windows on Linux. And the development process has improved quite a bit. And so I am super stoked for that. I currently have my gaming PC in the house downloading like 4 terabytes of games for me to play through. I've also got Splitgate. So if I do want a multiplayer game, because still Halo doesn't work, Apex doesn't work. Most of the EAC games, even though Easy Anti-Cheat released that Linux SDK update and stuff, devs haven't really swapped to the new SDK yet. They might when the Steam Deck launch. We'll see. But most of the games still don't work in that regard. But Splitgate now has a native Windows port, or native Linux port. And it runs really, really well. There are some issues. It still crashes sometimes, usually after matches, thankfully. Still crashes sometimes. But it runs really well. Runs on Vulkan and plays just like it does on Windows. And so I think it's going to be, I'm going to start finally playing through my single player game backlog. I've got a ton of games I'm super stoked for lined up. And then if I want to play multiplayer games, I'm going to be putting a lot of time into Splitgate because they're doing good. They're doing good. So like I said, full video on that coming soon. After Monday's video, you'll see why specifically I was waiting on that, but super stoked regardless. Speaking of PC gaming, we finally got an official announcement that God of War for the PlayStation 4 is now coming to PC with upgraded graphics and an uncapped frame rate. This is beyond exciting. I am a huge God of War fan from the classic games, but I never played enough of this one. I got it on launch. I was super stoked for it. I ran into an issue where the text. So I was playing it on my HDR TV, which was not the OLED. Like this was a couple years ago. Playing it on my HDR TV, and the game has a lot of pitch black elements and then bright white text, and all the text is super small at 4K. And so I had nothing but eye strain. I'm not a huge HDR fan because this keeps happening, but I had bright white text, pure white text on a solid black background, and it was small enough that sitting at a distance to play on a TV was really hard to read, and it just gave me eye strain. So I kind of gave up on it, and then I got spoiled some important story points, just kind of accidentally spoiled, and I never went back to it. So I am super stoked to go back to it on PC. I'm so glad that they're not only just doing like a basic lazy port, but they're also like upgrading the visuals and everything. So I am super stoked for this. And I love to see that Sony is slowly coming around on PC stuff as well. So very, very excited for that. Moving on, New Wave Toys is releasing a Missile Command X Replicade. They've got the basic one or the field test one, which has slightly different like banners and size and stuff like that. Now these are scaled down replicas, so they're only about a foot tall. I'm still hoping to get some actual arcade cabs here in the studio. I've been spending a lot of time over the past couple months, like getting all the LED tracks ran. I finally used up all of my LED tracks, so I had a bunch left over after we did the one run on the top of the ceiling, or on the top of the wall, and now I have it run like all over the ceiling, all over the place. been getting more shelves in, been planning, trying to finalize the arcade crossed with video rental store kind of look and aesthetic for the studio. And I'm trying to get some actual arcade cabs and kiosks in here. And I'm open to some of these kind of, you know, replacement repro cabs and stuff like that. But that is too small. Like, this would just sit on a table and you like control the joystick with your finger. It's not the same. So I want something bigger. But if you're into the smaller arcade cabs and stuff like that, these are pretty cool. And I love the stuff that they have been doing with that as well. Twitch has some changes that we should probably talk about. I think first and foremost, I'm going to go back here and talk about this one. So this is the first chatter highlight. And in fact, we have some of those in our Twitch chat for today's stream as well. So for example, I can see that Imran TV over on Twitch was talking about the Sigmas as a first-time chatter. We also had at the start of the stream, Mindmelt Gaming talking about backing track as a first-time chatter. This is huge, and it's available to view from oh crap, I closed my Twitch chat. It's something that you can see both as a creator and as a moderator, which means that, you know, if you're working with a team or anything like that, you can work together to better shout out, highlight, or whatever first-time chatters. So there's been this big culture move on Twitch to not shout out lurkers anymore, as it can make them uncomfortable, cause them to bounce. It was one of those things where also it just kind of seems kind of desperate if you're doing your stream and then you're pulling up your viewer chat and just shouting out names of people that aren't actually chatting in your stream. It just doesn't look great and it makes people uncomfortable. And so a lot of people, myself included, have moved to not even having alerts for followers anymore and just subscribers and then calling out chatters. And so this allows you to see when someone who is new to your channel finally starts chatting in a way that I think is actually really, really cool. And I think will help people kind of connect with their new audience members quite a lot. And so I love this feature, and I love that they are, like I said, making it available to both bot mods and the actual streamer themselves. They also have 3 new buttons that you may see below the video player. Rewind the stream, set reminder or remind me, which is kind of cool, I guess. And then watch trailer, which will just take you to the channel's trailer so you can see more of what they're about. Rewind the stream is pretty cool. This is more of apparently a hacky workaround instead of a kind of finalized thing, because YouTube or Twitch still doesn't have the proper, like, the way they stream video doesn't cache it in the same way that YouTube does for an actual like stream rewind. And so you can actually go to, if someone's live on Twitch, you can go to their channel page and click the VOD, and you can actually go through the VOD of what they're streaming right now. It just won't be completely updated. And then to get back to the live feed, you still have to go back to the main page and view it live. And the same thing with the rewind. You can only go so far back, and then it still jumps you back and forth between the VOD and stuff like that. It's a hacky workaround, but still better than nothing. If you're worried about security for IRL streams, if you set your VODs to be unpublished by default, then that button goes away. So that is pretty neat as well. Wanted to respond to a couple chat messages here. What happened to your new favorite microphone? We answered this at the start of the stream, but that is back at my main desk, where I do my primary work. I find it really interesting, and I'm not trying to be like super harsh or anything, but I find it really interesting that I shoot videos, I produce videos on camera and release them in like 3 or 4 different sets. And every time I'm at one of the other sets that has a different piece of gear compared to the previous set, people act like I've gone back on my word or changed my mind on certain pieces of gear because there's different gear, when literally I'm in a different place. So I'm pretty sure I even said in the Earthworks icon video that the icon would sit at my main desk and the RE20 would be moved over here. But I don't know. It doesn't seem to register that I have a bunch of different sets for people and I have a bunch of different pieces of gear that I use at different things. Plus, I'm always testing and changing things because I review these things, so no piece of gear is ever truly static. Also, someone's mentioning, I take your knowledge very seriously, and I see that you send an audio bitrate with 160 kilobytes. What happened to 320? That just comes down to the fact that the plugin I use to stream to Twitch while also streaming to YouTube doesn't have an easy audio encoder setting, so I just have it set to whatever I had from OBS. If I ever do dedicated Twitch streams, they're at 320. It doesn't matter that much. All right. Moving on to the next news topic relating to Twitch specifically. I actually forgot that this one was in here. Twitch added a new badge for emote artists specifically. I don't entirely know what value this has, other than you can maybe more easily identify and shout out your particular artist in the chat if they have that badge. But it's pretty cool that they're adding more of this stuff in general, I guess. Oh yeah, we got a new classic, so I'm always like sharing these on Discord and stuff because this kind of thing is really cool to me. We've got a new retro style first-person shooter called OPR Out of the Office. It's available on Steam. The sale is probably over. Actually, no, it's still going to be on sale until Sunday, the 24th. So I am a huge fan of all these like modern retro FPSs like Ion Fury and Dusk and Ultra Kill and stuff like that. And so this is another such option that has finally released and is also available to play on Linux as well, which is very exciting. So like I said, I shout these out a lot on Discord and our news channels and things like that, but I want to try to incorporate more of these kinds of things that I highlight into streamer news. The PS3 emulator, RPCS3, now has a grand total of 0 games that can't do anything in the emulator, which is a huge milestone. So officially, there are 0 PlayStation 3 games that don't at least load in some capacity on the emulator. And in fact, if you look at the chart here, just loadable is only 0.19% of games anyway. So they have made huge progress to where 63.5% of games are already playable. You can like that's huge. And so slowly but surely progress has been made, and frankly they are in a really good state now. But not only that, they've also implemented Fidelity FX Super Resolution as well. So if you're looking to so the thing with emulators is sometimes when you change the render resolution or the scaling resolution or whatever, weird things happen. You break some of the aspects of the presentation. It doesn't look quite the same. And so instead you want it to render the same internally so it looks like it would on the console and then get a cleaner upscale. And in that case, FSR is a wonderful implementation to have here, and the fact that they already implemented it so much better is really cool. And again, it's platform agnostic, so you don't need an AMD GPU to take advantage of this. So this is really cool. I'm definitely, as you all know, a physical media and original hardware kind of guy, but there are certain games that I want to experience an emulator, either because they have cool extra features or because they run better or whatever. One such game, as an example, that I would love to, like some of the games, they have higher frame rates and things like that. And one game I'm hoping to get that treatment is the Heavenly Sword. It's a game that runs just absolutely terribly on the original hardware. Oh, they're actually showing it right here. And here, it's something that can actually run a little bit higher frame rate in the emulator, and you can take advantage of the upscaling, whereas upscaling in the actual render resolution is a bit less possible. So I'm super stoked for this. Glad that they are making such good progress. But unfortunately, we must go to a bit of sad news here for a moment. Roku and YouTube still cannot strike a deal together. This has been going on for like over a year, maybe 2 years, I feel like. They've just been really battling it out to like come to terms to keep YouTube on the Roku streaming devices. Now, personally, I've never known anyone who really owns... What's up, Mitt Checker, first-time viewer? Just shouting out the new feature. I've personally not known anyone who owns and uses a Roku. Like, smart TVs are becoming more common, and their Amazon Fire Sticks are usually more popular, or Apple TVs. But Roku still definitely has a market. And they had already removed YouTube TV and have since removed YouTube as well, and making it very difficult for... You can still sideload YouTube on Roku, but you can't install it officially. And they've been really struggling to come to terms for whatever reason. And Roku's claiming that it's not about money, but they also claim that YouTube... Where's the quote? Yeah. In fact, Roku does not earn a single dollar from YouTube's ad-supported video sharing service today, whereas Google makes hundreds of millions of dollars from YouTube's app on Roku. I'm going to cast a big doubt to that. Like, yes, Google and YouTube make hundreds of millions of dollars from YouTube views in general, but specifically Roku, I weirdly find that hard to believe. Like, I feel like that's a little too niche for that to be completely accurate, but I am honestly not certain. But either way, the big issue here is not really the cost of the Roku or YouTube itself, but rather independent creators. Like if you have people who would watch YouTube sometimes or even regularly, specifically on a Roku. Like, that was their only way to watch it in the form factor they wanted to watch it in, and now they can't get YouTube on it. Then, or new people, you know, new user acquisition who may discover YouTube and want to watch YouTube videos on it. It's independent creators that are suffering from this, because we're the ones who's going to lose out on the views and the money. YouTube's not going to be harmed by it. Roku's not going to be hurt by it. So it's just, I don't know. It's frustrating. I don't think it's mentioned here, but in the previous discussions about it when they were arguing over it before, look at all the first time chatters on Twitch. We got Midchecker, we got Atrox93, we got the Random Dad, and we got Beautiful Arabian Goddess. Look at everyone taking advantage of the new feature. I love it. Anyway, from the previous discussions about this, it seems to be that the issue comes down to data sharing and privacy and things like that. So I don't know. I hope they get the crap together, because this is dumb. Elgato's EpocCam, not EposCam as everyone wanted to call it, the mobile streaming app to use your phone as a webcam, just got Snapchat lenses support. I mean, you're making use out of it by chatting, so. But yeah, EpocCam gets Snapchat lenses support, which is the first mobile webcam app to do so, and I don't think there's a whole lot of third-party apps or tools in general that actually get access to this. So this is really cool, and in fact, the cool advantage here is that it's running on the phone. For whatever reason, all this tech is always developed for mobile and not something that you can do on the desktop, which is really frustrating. Snap does have an app on the desktop, but this stuff always seems to work better directly integrated to mobile. So what's cool here is you're not actually going to spend any additional, from what I can tell by it, any additional CPU cycles or anything on the face tracking or anything like that, which if you watched my review of the live streamer Cap 4K I put up, their tool to add filters and things like that to your camera was super laggy on desktop at 4K and things like that. And so people were calling for Elgato to integrate this with their capture card support for cameras and such. But realistically, running this on the desktop for some reason, it was always super laggy and hard to do. So this is kind of a boon in that all of this will run natively on the phone and then just send the final video over to your computer, which saves you a lot of cycles compared to doing it on the desktop after the fact. So pretty neat there. Razer has released new RGB products. You got a new fans, CPU cooler, PWM fan controller, and a Katana Chroma power supply. So you can effectively, at this point, if you choose your parts right, do almost an all Razer themed system at this point, which is pretty wild. So whether you're into it or not, that's whatever. I do think moving to like matte black with RGB is kind of a neat move. I do like that aesthetic a little bit more than just, you know, RGB everywhere, but hey. Oh yeah, Razer also announced 2 new microphones, the Siren V2 Pro and V2X for professional and casual streamers. These appear to just be condenser microphone. Actually, no, that one says dynamic. Okay, so the V2 Pro is dynamic microphone, 20 hertz. What? Windows Central. What? 20 hertz frequency response. It only captures 20 hertz. The bassiest of the bass. Clearly they wrote this up wrong, because 20 hertz frequency response on its own doesn't mean anything. But I do appreciate analog limiter built into the microphone. Absolutely sick. I'm loving that more microphones are doing this, either built-in compressors or limiters, so you don't peak and clip. Absolutely phenomenal. It is in both of these microphones. One is a dynamic, one is a condenser. Obviously, I'm going to recommend you go with the dynamic. They still have the stupid Blue Yeti looking form factor. And it's even dumber for the Pro, because as a dynamic, I'm betting it's still end address, so you're going to be talking into the top of it, so you got to bend this whole thing over. I don't know. I don't like the Blue Yeti look. I don't like that they basically just made a Blue Yeti black, but that's just me. AMD has collaborated with Microsoft and 343 Industries to get a special edition Halo Infinite theme 6900 XT, and they've been doing some giveaways for it as well, which looks pretty sick. It's absolutely gorgeous. Of course, you're not going to be able to get your hands on it, and really, I don't recommend anyone touch AMD GPUs anyway, but it is absolutely incredible looking, and I would happily have one if I could. Oh, all right, we're going to talk about this camera in a minute. We had a couple chat questions I wanted to get to here. Tristan's asking if anyone knows if there's BTTV or FFC type browser extensions for YouTube chat. I don't know that there is at the moment. Their API is not super great for that. Instagram did just add the ability to post images and video via the desktop through their website. You could previously do that through a Facebook business account, but not through the Instagram website itself. One base, get that mic. If I use my laptop's webcam, my in-game FPS is not dropping, but if I connect my DSLR as a webcam through EOS utility beta, my FPS drops like hell. Any solution? I would imagine that's just your computer having to decode the pre-compressed H.264 stream, so you might have better luck with a capture card, but maybe not. I don't really know without playing with the specific hardware involved here. Do you know if AMD is going to update your streaming quality with H.264? Probably not. People have been asking that for years and years and years. Probably not. Windscreen for Icon Pro. I never had a windscreen for Icon Pro, so I have no clue what you're asking about. I specifically used it with that one the entire time. BTTV works on YouTube. Oh. BTTV. Better YouTube gaming. Hey. Look at that. There's even a dedicated extension for it. So yeah. This is what happens when I answer questions without Google searching things, which I do on purpose most of the time. Royal Loki, just here to show support from the tube. Thank you. You may hear my AC in the background or our backing track music. I keep juggling the volume so that's not too loud to me, but you can still hear it. Regarding the Elgato Wave mics, OBS and Wave Link, do you think using the mic through Wave Link is better than using the mic directly to OBS is better? I mean, that comes down to how you want to mix it. If you add it to OBS, then you have to do all your mixing in OBS and you don't get a preview of what your mix sounds like. If you mix it in Wave Link, then you get a preview of what your mix sounds like, but you can't record separate audio tracks or add VSTs or anything. So there's no better, it's just how you want to do it. Any review on the Rodecaster Pro coming soon? I have one sitting here, haven't had time to tackle it, but it will be happening. Just purchased Cypress Quadcast X or Quadcast S. Yes. I actually quite enjoyed that Quadcast. It's pretty solid. Some people keep commenting on my reviews of it, saying that theirs sounds like crap and don't know how mine sounds better. I get the feeling that just comes down to technique, which I have a whole video on. You can go check that out. All right, so DJI released a camera, which many creators are calling the perfect camera. It's the Ronin 4D. This thing is incredible. Do I have Dark Reader on? Oh, that didn't make a difference. So this camera is like 5 different things in one. So it's a cinema camera, first and foremost, with like apparently a pretty good sensor. It records the ProRes RAW, which I am not a huge fan of at all. So I hope they partner with someone else like Blackmagic for Blackmagic RAW. So it's a cinema camera. It's also a gimbal. It's also a 4th axis gimbal that controls up and down movement, so it stays completely locked into place. It also has LiDAR for autofocus and for viewing your plane of focus, and it has a built-in wireless monitoring and control tool all in one. The downsides to this is to really use it run and gun with the gimbal stuff, you have to use DJI's lenses, which is going to be added cost if you're already invested into a lens ecosystem and you don't get quite the same look or lenses that you previously wanted. The advantages that come with that are that you get built-in autofocus control over the lenses, as well as you don't have to recalibrate it when you swap lenses. It automatically picks up the data from the lens and calibrates itself, which is pretty phenomenal. If you use other lenses, you can still get the autofocusing with Sony E-mount lenses, as they will control it, but if you use any other lenses, you have to use like the manual focus puller stuff and set that up with a bunch of extra gears, and then when you swap lenses, you have to recalibrate, and that has been my biggest issue. I've never really used gimbals on this channel when I make content. I have a couple. I have bought quite a few over my years and just find them too obnoxious, like the setup. Like I would rather just use proper like handheld shooting techniques to quickly get the shot I'm working on than spend half an hour fumbling with a gimbal, getting it configured and everything and fighting with it. And so I've just never really used it much. Granted, I don't do a whole lot of shooting other people. I'm mostly in a studio shooting products, but there are handheld stuff I like doing. And personally, I find the fake floaty gimbal look to just not be appealing. Whereas most TV shows and movies you watch, they're still using the backpack Steadicam, but it has an actual like handheld shaky look to it that I find to be much more realistic. That being said, this camera looks phenomenal. I think most productions that can afford it, because it's only $7,000, which sounds like a lot, but that's the price of basically a budget cinema camera these days, compared to like Reds and Sony Venices and stuff. So like big productions can happily buy a couple of these for the niche use case and absolutely love it. I think wedding videographers and people who were wanting a cinema camera but haven't really picked one out yet are going to use this as their main rig just because it handles all of their workflow that they need. But it's definitely a little awkward if you're more of a tripod locked off kind of shooting scenario. So I think it's pretty phenomenal. I would love to check it out at some point. Obviously I don't have $7,000 to drop on it, but yeah, I am always excited by camera innovations, and this one looks absolutely stellar. Holy balls, we got a hype train going over on Twitch. We have Dan Just with the Prime sub, and then Jay Chin with the 2 gifted subs. Thank you. You all rock. Thank you so much. But does it blend? It might blend. It just might. But really, if you want to check out some videos on it, there were some great videos. I especially like the Corridor Crew video on this camera, where they really showcase like driving it around on a one wheel and stuff, and showcase just how badass it can be. And I think for a lot of people, it's just going to kind of be an extra tool for specific scenarios, and you won't even know they're using it. But I think for shots like Corridor showed off, where they're really like stretching the gimbal and the autofocus and all of that like capabilities together, you're really going to see some kind of innovative shots that are really only made possible because they had access to that camera. Could it work as an insane live camera? Yeah, I don't think it really has. I'd assume it has an SDI output somewhere, but I didn't see it mentioned in any of the reviews that I watched on it. I didn't watch all of them, but I didn't see anyone mention an output. It would be kind of weird to use it as that HDMI. Oh, hey, it actually has HDMI output. Okay. I assumed it would be SDI. So yeah, you could use it for live. You'd need to apply a lot to the output instead of just shooting raw, and you could use it for playing sports, for like covering sports. Like that would be pretty baller. Oh, actually that would be insane. Imagine being on the side of a basketball court. Now you have limited like photography areas, but if you're on the side or one of the ends of a basketball court and like running around with this thing to broadcast like the angle and with the autofocus and stuff, like you could get some incredible shots with it. For just normal live streaming, there would really be no point, but that's wild. All right. Anyway, Bloodborne is apparently getting a sequel, a PC port, and a PS5 upgrade in development at Bluepoint now that they have been acquired by PlayStation. So that would be very fascinating, because we have very much sorry, I was reading chat. The demand for PS5, upgrades and unlocked frame rates and things like that has definitely been very high, and people have been wanting to see it. So to put Bluepoint on it specifically, especially to give it a sequel and a PC port, is kind of exciting. We'll see if it happens. I would be super stoked for all of those things. I'll probably just play it on my PS5 instead of PC since I have the game itself. But yeah, this could be very exciting and showing that they are putting that Bluepoint investment to the test. Wanted to mention a chat over on Twitch. They mentioned that the DJI Ronin 4D is an interesting concept, but won't be viable in the long run if it's a hassle to use with third-party lenses. So it's not a huge hassle. Like, it has swappable mounts. The only issue is you still have to like calibrate and stuff, which you have to do with every other gimbal at the moment. So theoretically, it's not a downgrade, but I would imagine future versions might accommodate that a little bit better. XSplit has introduced Broadcaster version 4.2, which is apparently a huge update. I can take a look at it at some point. It's been a while since I've really looked at XSplit. But they've got VST 3.0 support, which means you can use the RTX voice VST filter from Zaymar and things like that. You have a virtual microphone, so OBS doesn't even have this yet. So you have virtual camera, which streams your XSplit stream out to a fake webcam, which you can use for Skype and Zoom and stuff like that. But one of the big complaints has been not being able to feed your audio out. Well, now you can with virtual audio or microphone. Really cool. I really hope OBS gets this at some point. Low power mode. By activating low power mode on video devices not actively being used. I'm guessing that just kind of shoots them to a lower resolution or frame rate, which is pretty cool. The big thing here HDR support. So you can capture HDR games and convert them to SDR. You still can't stream HDR. It doesn't have an HDR like streaming pipeline yet, but that's probably the first step. That is pretty exciting, assuming it's actually doing proper tone mapping and not just slapping a LUT on it. By the way, I do sell my own LUTs for that. It's over on my selfie page. You can ask me on Twitter or Discord for the link. I don't have it on hand. I have a video on it as well, if you want to search. If they're just slapping a LUT on it, kind of but this is definitely one of the first steps to proper HDR support, which is actually very exciting. I love that they're still upgrading and investing in this program, even if the UI still looks like it's from Windows 98. But this is pretty exciting regardless. Next up, we have Space Cadet Pinball has gotten a reverse engineering project. This is just the version of the game that came bundled with Windows back in the day, so Windows XP and older. So that was actually part of a bigger pinball collection that was supposed to be like an upgrade path where you're like, hey, I like this, let me buy the rest. And everyone just kind of treated it as a standalone game. But people are doing a decompile reverse engineering run at it, and it's already playable on the Switch as well as PS Vita. I'm actually going to try out some of these ports because that is very exciting. Love highlighting stuff like this. By the way, I don't know if we have links going in chat, so I will have it all updated in the description below after the stream is over. So before we get to Apple news, I just wanted to real quick mention that Spotify now has a video podcast. So obviously, Joe Rogan's podcast has been a video podcast, but now it'll be something that all creators can apply to access, and you can actually get to it through Anchor as well, which is pretty wild. More discovery for you. I don't understand the appeal of watching long video podcasts personally, because the whole like advantage of podcasts is you listen to it while you do other stuff, but you have the option available to you, and that's cool, I guess. Also, Facebook introduced a podcast feed where you just feed it your RSS URL and it will make like notification posts for your page, which is just free discovery. If you have a podcast going, it would be kind of dumb not to take advantage of that for right now, because it's literally like pushing the notifications to everyone. So easy extra podcast views. So lastly, we can talk about the Apple. Actually, we have one more thing to talk about before the Apple stuff, in that Resolve got a new update, 17.4. My boy Patrick Sterling has a video covering it. Go check it out. He covers it great in depth. It has optimizations for M1 Pro and Max. It has a Dropbox replay functionality that I haven't looked into yet, which is pretty exciting. VST3 support, some text improvements, some 3D keyer improvements. What I'm really excited for is the custom effect folders. So previously with Resolve effects, you could only put them in the specific folders of what type of effect they are. So effect, generator, and like transition. So if you got a bunch of preset packs, they're all just thrown together and it's an absolute disaster. Well, now you can make it to where you actually have individual folders, even under titles, for all your custom effects, which is a huge workflow boon. They fixed the bug where if you import an image or a bunch of images that aren't supposed to be a sequence, it will not import them as a sequence anymore. And if you use the YouTube exporter, which I don't know that I recommend so much because it will kind of be lower quality, it will actually take your markers and convert them to chapter markers on YouTube, like you see here on this video, which is going to save me a ton of time. So super stoked for this update. Go check out Patrick's video for more details. And lastly, let's talk about Apple real quick here. Obviously, everyone and their brother have made reaction videos to the Apple stream or Apple News conference and all of that jazz. So I won't be too redundant, but I am very excited for the possibilities that this unlocks, because they claimed that the ProRes encode and decode engine beats out the Afterburner card in the previous Mac Pro. So literally this $2,300 laptop is apparently going to be faster than their like $50,000 Mac Pro. I would be livid right now if I bought that kind of Mac Pro for that kind of money. I always thought it was insane, but now they just made it completely useless and obsolete, which is pretty wild. And the fact is that supposedly, according to some leaks, and I saw like Snazzy Labs tweeting it out and stuff, the M1 chips that they're putting in the Mac Pro is like 4 of these Pros or Maxes, I think the Maxes, like glued together effectively. And so it's going to be an insane machine. Now, what I'm curious about here with, you know, all the memory they can do, all the bandwidth and all this stuff, are they still going to go for the small SoC kind of form factor, or are they going to build something bigger? Are they going to go, because theoretically they could just do another like G4 Cube as the new Mac Pro and just make it an insane powerhouse or a new trash can. But The issue then comes into supporting other hardware, because currently M1 doesn't really support direct PCIe connectivity. You obviously have Thunderbolt, but not direct, as well as things like SATA storage. Now, for laptops and for Mac Minis and things like that, not a huge deal, but there are a couple different workflows that people buy Mac Pros for. Now, for one workflow, which is like the editing house, the production house, where you have a bunch of Mac Pros and they're kind of disposable. They're not, you know, they're just swap, you know, per user, and they're not personally invested in the hardware necessarily. I could see that being a huge boon to not have any of the hardware in the Mac Pro and you just connecting everything through Thunderbolt or networking, because that would mean that if a system goes down or has an issue or something, you can just swap it out in place and not have to swap out all of the hard drives and PCIe cards and whatever, and that could be a huge boon. But for the more individual users or the more independent workflows or whatever, most of those people want to have their extra hard drives and accelerator cards, especially the audio workflow where you need all those extra audio cards and things like that. Like, they want those in the machine, and having a smaller machine with a bunch of stuff taped to the machine is worse than just a bigger machine that has it all inside. So we'll see what they come up with. I would love to check out the new MacBook Pros at some point. I can't justify it right now, but I was holding out to get a MacBook Pro until the Gen 2 of M1 stuff, and this has definitely come and delivered. They're obviously a fair bit on the pricey side, but for the specs and supposed power, they're not actually that expensive. It's just expensive for me. But I have been working on using my M1 Mac Mini a lot more at my main desk, and I have some videos coming on that very soon. So I'm super stoked. They're doing some crazy stuff here, but we'll see. We'll see what they come up with. I'm curious how they'll handle a M1 iMac Pro with this kind of stuff, and then from there, someone mentioned a Mac Pro Mini, which I could definitely see, but I definitely still want them to deliver a full fat M1 like Mac Pro. So we'll see. Well, that's about all the topics I have for you all today. How many we'll get a couple chat messages in before I bounce. Appreciate you all hanging out with me here. How many streamers are using an Apple device to stream broadcast? I mean, some people are. I bought my M1 Mac Mini specifically to cover how that's usable for. There's this weird back and forth of where like actual video workflows and some higher end broadcast workflows were always designed for Mac from the ground up. But then you have scenarios where like the more independent game streamer side of things, a lot of that hardware doesn't even support Mac. Like GoXLR still doesn't have a Mac app, things like that. So there's a weird back and forth in terms of what's supported and what the workflows should be. So yeah, I'm going to be covering the M1 for streaming still at some point. I will say I've had good luck with capture cards, and obviously there's the Live Gamer Bolt, which gives you the full fat, you know, Live Gamer 4K experience on Mac. So lots of good stuff there. I may have another stream later today opening some cards or something like that, but otherwise I gotta work on some other stuff. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Hope you enjoyed. Hit the like button, subscribe, go follow me on Twitch if you're on YouTube, go follow me on YouTube if you're over on Twitch, join us on Discord, discord.gg/EposVox, and I will chat at you all later. Discord.gg/EposVox. Also, backingtrack.gg for the background music, EposVox.gg for the merch, yada yada. You all know the drill. See ya! Bye.